Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Job Picks. The other half of the show, the parlay. Joining me in to break down some UFC 304, headlined by Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards for the undisputed welterweight title of the world. Co-main event, the interim belt, which is being defended by Tom Aspinall taking on Curtis Blaydes. Pretty stacked card overall. I mean, a really solid main card and then some pretty fun prelims. But before we get into that, let's talk about last week, UFC Vegas 94. How'd it go for you?
It went good, man. I was up 3.375 units. Yeah, dude, I felt like my reads were spot on. I missed on Mo Usman, and I took a long shot dog play on Brian Kelleher. Outside of that, everything was pretty spot on. I missed a few like super long shot props that were like plus 3,200, plus 2,700, but you never really expect to hit those. But I feel good, man. It's 3 weeks in a row in profit for me. And heading into a big card like this, which notoriously the pay-per-view cards are a little bit easier to gauge. You get higher level competition. It's a little bit easier to see through. So I'm pumped for it. About to catch a hot streak right now with 4 in a row. You had a massive night. Let's hear about some of those insane plays you hit.
I was wondering if I was in a dream Saturday night because everything that I put out there seemed like it was going through. And usually I'll throw 4 to 5, maybe 6 long shot props in there, and you hit one, then it covers you, or even gets you into some profit just to cover the props. But we were hitting like everything, man. Like, so we hit the money lines like on the Juana Carolina as a dog, Trey Ogden as a dog. We hit Cody Gibson submission plus 400. We had a big play on the under 2.5 there too. Hit Bruno Silva inside the distance at plus 320. Bruno Silva round 2 finish at plus 1,000. The 2 or almost 3 unit play on Steve Garcia, and then hit Verna Janjaroba round 2 finish plus 900. So we were hitting some big props, hitting good dog money lines. Ended up just under 10 units in profit on the night for the straight bets and the parlays. And then the DFS plays were just on another level. Once again, swept the board on better picks, 8-0 there, cashed 4 slips. And then on underdog, we went 5-1, cashed 2 out of the 3 slips. And then we hit the 5 leg on underdog, the 7 legger on better picks. So it was a crazy night, man. And those were ones that, you feel great about, but you can't get too high. Moving into next week, can't think you're just seeing the board differently. Sometimes stuff just goes through, and we're happy about it. We want to continue it into next week, but moving forward towards next week, can't get too confident in anything. Always got to do the due diligence. And I feel good about this card too. I mean, we got 14 fights, so you don't need to bet on every single fight. We got a lot of spots. We're going to have a lot of opportunities and a lot of good fights. So I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, we had the Jake Paul, Mike Perry fight. And the only play I put on that one was cashed in 24 seconds or something like 24.
Yeah, it happened so fast.
I was like, that felt great because just to have it happen that quickly, and then you could just sit back and watch without having to sweat anything. It was great. So, yeah, shout out to Jake Paul for cashing that for me. And how about Mike Perry, man? The guy is just the human punching bag, dude. Like I was surprised he took that many shots because when he walked out, and I was there live, and when Jake Paul walked out, he looked so much bigger than Mike.
Oh, he's massive.
And right after he dropped him that first time, I'm like, this is not going to go well because Mike's going to get back up and he's going to take the shot. He's going to keep taking those shots. And eventually it's just going to be too many. I think he got dropped, 3 times?
Mm-hmm.
And he was almost knocked out a couple times on the ropes. Like, yeah, it's a rough one for Mike Perry, but respect to him for taking all that damage because that's he's a dog. He's a dog, but he's not a boxer, man. Like he's a bare knuckle fighter. There's a reason he gets hurt every bare knuckle fight and then just keeps moving forward and he's able to break guys. But in boxing, you just can't do that. So, yeah.
Dude, Jake is such a genius, and it really hit me why he was fighting Mike Perry in there. First of all, Mike Perry has the name. He's the king of violence, BKFC champion, knocks people out, is just tough as nails. And a lot of people thought like Mike Perry's going to come in here and catch Jake Paul with something big. But you get in there in the ring, and Mike Perry still has his hands down like he's fighting in bare knuckle. And
Yeah.
Jake probably knew that. Jake knew Mike wasn't going to come in with a traditional boxing style. Having that size advantage, being faster, I mean, dude, that was always Jake Paul. Like, there was no chance Mike Perry was ever even going to come close to winning that fight. He was going to eat too many jabs. Like, Mike Perry doesn't really throw a jab. Like, there was nothing Mike Perry that was going to do that was going to be better than Jake. So, props to Jake too. Like, people hate on him. I don't really get it. Like, everyone says go fight a boxer. Like, but with off all these big name MMA guys are wanting to fight him, and you're making millions and millions of dollars doing that, why the fuck would you ever fight a boxer?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I for his legacy, yeah, whatever. Like, maybe he should fight a boxer and, get ranked and maybe win a championship. But for now, I mean, he's only 11 fights in. Keep fighting these dudes. Get your paychecks, get more experience, practice. And he's still super young. So props to Jake, man. I used to hate on him, but I actually respect the shit out of what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, I like it too. I mean, it's more entertaining to me to watch that than to watch Shakir Stevenson as a massive favorite.
Yeah.
Jab his way to a fucking decision. So
yeah. We're watching like Jake versus like a guy, like his last opponent who hadn't fought in 5 years and is out of shape and stuff. Like, I'd rather see him fight a champion in another organization. And like Mike Perry was a perfect candidate. It made it fun.
All the people that before the fight, they're like, oh, Mike's gonna dog him. Mike's gonna get him. Like, he's a badass. And then after the fight, like, oh, this is rigged. It's like, dude,
they have no idea.
This isn't rigged, bro. This is not rigged. Jake was the bigger dude. He is the actual boxer. Like, to beat Mike Perry is not like something to just throw out of the window. Like, Mike landed some big shots on Jake too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not rigged. If you're saying it's rigged, you're delusional as hell.
Yeah.
But Jake is still good. He's not an elite boxer, but he's still beating guys that have a lot of combat sports experience. And they're not bums by any means. So gotta give him his respect. And then that call out to Alex Pereira, I think that was just the smartest thing he could have done. Just call out a guy, like a scary guy, that there's no chance he's ever going to fight him because Dana's not going to let him out of his contract.
And it's the genius again of him, because if he does ever fight him, it's going to be when Alex is like 42.
Yeah, that's true. He's 36.
It's like, dude, he knows exactly what he's doing.
In 4 years, 5 years, when he's out of his contract, he'd be like, remember when I called you out? You want to do it? Yeah, we'll see.
But like, people don't get that, Jake Paul, first of all, is very athletic. He grew up as an athlete. And obviously what he's built on social media and his brand, like, he's a hard working dude, and anything a person like that puts his mind to, he's going to accomplish. And if he's been in the boxing gym for, 1,500 days straight, these types of results are going to happen. So,
yeah, no doubt. Enough Jake Paul. Let's get into UFC 304. We're going to go through, give you a breakdown and a prediction for every single one of the fights. If you want our actual bets, jump in the Home Fight Picks Premium membership. The link is down in the description to join. That's where you get our bets. We're going to go through and give you the breakdown and the picks, which is usually a lot different than our actual bets. So if you want those, that's where you can get them. Let's start it off with the first fight of the night. Modestas Bukauskas sitting at -174 against Marcin Prachnio, sitting at +136. Prachnio is the older fighter, coming off the win to Devin Clark, and Bukauskas coming off the knockout loss to Vitor Petrino. Opening up the card, we got light heavyweights. What are you thinking on here?
Yeah, this is I don't know if it's going to be the most fun fight to open up a pay-per-view card with. It's a little interesting to see this price, though, because Bukauskas is a guy who came back into the UFC, and he immediately gets the win over Tyson Pedro, and a lot of people, at that point, still thought Tyson Pedro was a guy that could contend in the top 15, top 10. And Bukauskas came in there and upset him as a big underdog. And then he fights Pauga, who has one win in the UFC against Jordan Wright. And all he did was hold him up against the cage and made it the most boring fight ever. And outside of that, like, Pauga's getting knocked out by Muhammad Usman, who we just saw have a horrible performance. He's losing to, Guskov gets knocked out in the first round badly there. So I don't think Pauga is very good either. And then Bukauskas loses to Vitor Petrino, which is, no sweat off your back. Petrino is undefeated, very powerful, and he got caught. So I can see kind of why people maybe who are betting Bukauskas here, because they see that he's 2-1 in his last 3. Prachnio kind of gets a bad rap for whatever reason. I think people, have seen some of his losses and they're not very high on him. But at the end of the day, like Prachnio comes from like a karate point style background. Like he's a very good striker. He's very accurate. He throws a lot of volume for this weight class, almost 6 significant strikes per minute. It doesn't really get hit with that many either. He's very good with his range. He's good with the leg kicks, and he's a strong, strong dude. And we saw him go 3 rounds against Devin Clark, land over 100 significant strikes. He fought Vitor Petrino, but Petrino just took him down and eventually submitted him. And then he has the infamous fight against William Knight, where he just sat at range and teed off while William Knight did nothing. So I just think from a striking standpoint, if it's on the feet for 3 rounds, this is Prachnio. Bukauskas is going to have to mix in some takedowns here and there. Prachnio's takedown defense isn't the best, but while this is on the feet, I think Prachnio is going to land the points. He's going to land the good leg kicks, slow Bukauskas down. And at plus 136 as an underdog, I mean, that's kind of the time you bet Prachnio is when he's a dog, and you don't really bet Bukauskas when he's a big favorite like this. So, yeah, I'm going to take Prachnio for the pick here.
Yeah, I like Prachnio here, man. I mean, I think he came into the UFC. He looked like he could be one of the worst UFC fighters ever. Got knocked out in the first round for his first 3 fights. But since then, I mean, he's 4-2. And his only losses are to Felipe Lins, who hasn't lost a fight in a while, and Vitor Petrino, who was undefeated at the time, and then lost that undefeated record to Anthony Smith, which is just still crazy to me. But I mean, he's 4-2 in his last 6, and the biggest thing here is like Bukauskas really doesn't have the greatest power, and I think if it's a stand-up battle, Prachnio is going to have a lot more volume. He keeps his range really well, uses his kicks, and guys at this weight class, light heavyweight, they're just really not that good at keeping up with volume, and they usually rely on just big knockout blows because that's how they win fights. Prachnio hasn't been knocked out in a while. He could get knocked out here, but Bukauskas just really doesn't really land big shots. Like the fact that he went life and death with Zach Pauga was pretty crazy to me. I mean, he came into the UFC his second stint, beat Tyson Pedro, but Pedro was like on something crazy in that fight and was not himself, but he still fought. That was a mistake from him. He lost that fight. Bukauskas got a win. But I don't know. I just think on the feet, Prachnio is going to have a lot more volume. I think he should be able to chew up the legs. And if you remember Bukauskas before he got cut, getting his leg chewed up by Khalil Roundtree.
Oh, yeah.
And got knocked out with that oblique kick. So I'm not saying
who beat Khalil Roundtree?
Yeah, Prachnio beat him.
Yes, sir.
Prachnio beat him. That's crazy. Like, Khalil probably wasn't himself what he is now at that point, but still beat him.
Still, you eat that kind of power.
Yeah. I mean, Khalil had trouble getting inside. That was really the biggest thing, is Prachnio just kept him at bay the entire time. And I think he could do that here. I mean, they're similar in height. Bukauskas actually has the longer reach, but I think Prachnio's kicks will be a big deal here, and I think he could probably win a decision based on volume. So I'm going to take Prachnio. Up the card, we got Shauna Bannon taking on the debuting Alice Ardelean. Right now, based on the odds that I can find, Shauna Bannon is a minus 200 favorite over Ardelean, coming back at plus 165. So Ardelean is one of these girls that is big in the social media space. Not really for her face, but mainly for her behind. And she had a very, very poor MMA record for a while, and then goes on a little streak, picks up some wins, gets it up to 9-5, and then gets a chance here in the UFC against Shauna Bannon, who lost her debut, to move to 5-1, and her first chance to get a UFC win after that loss. Who do you like in here?
Oh, man. Have you? I was gonna ask if you ever watch Alice Ardelean's TikToks. It just infuriates me. I had to go check it out to see why she had so many followers. It infuriates me because there's people like you and I who put a lot of effort into content, and it takes a while. It's a process. She's just like reaction. She has like reaction videos to stupid videos, and she just makes one simple stupid face. She didn't even talk. She didn't do anything, and she just has gone viral and has all these followers. But and on the side, she's a MMA fighter. But I saw a lot of people pissed off about the signing because she's 9-5. Not a lot of people give her a ton of credit. But I watched some of her fights. Her only two losses lately is Zhang Wei Li and Diana Belbita, I believe. Yeah. And if you watch some of her fights that she's won lately, they might not be the highest level of competition, but she is kind of a dog in there, dude. She likes to scrap. She'll get in there. She'll trade shots with you. She's constantly throwing. She's mixed in some takedowns as well. If she gets on top, she's got some decent control, and she will look to hurt you and land ground and pound. She's very aggressive, and in low level women's MMA, like that's going to look better to the judges, in my opinion. And for Shauna Bannon, like she's going to be more technical in this fight. She should land a decent amount of volume just based off of Alice Ardelean not really having the best striking defense. She kind of just blocks punches with her face and tries to hit you harder. But Shauna Bannon's record and the girls she's fought is girls that are 3-0, 1-2, 1-1, 3-0, and then loses to Bruna Brasil. So it's not like she has the highest level of competition either. I think she got onto the card the last London card or 2 London cards ago. They brought her in, out of Ireland. She has that Irish background that the UFC is trying to push. I don't think she's the best fighter in the world. She's still inexperienced too. If you're looking at professional MMA experience, it's on Alice's side here. So yeah, I'm gonna take Alice Ardelean for the pick. I think she's gonna be more aggressive. I think she's gonna hit harder, and she's gonna be the one trying to win the fight. No, Bannon's gonna be the one trying to make this look, a little more pretty from the outside. So give me the aggressor.
Yeah, this is a super low level, man. Like,
oh yeah,
it's crazy that either of these girls are in the UFC because Shauna Bannon, not good, not dangerous, and just what I saw from her in her UFC debut was like, how do you expect to win? Like, she's just throwing sidekicks out there. Her hands are terrible, and she wasn't really getting takedowns. She couldn't really get a takedown. And on the other side, Ardelean, from the film that I've watched, she's just like a barroom brawler. Like, she just comes forward and throws, and she's going to create chaos. And I guess if you're looking at betting odds, I guess that looks okay. But part of me says that Shauna Bannon's probably just going to be able to see through the chaos, throw those sidekicks to keep her at bay, keep it boring, maybe land a takedown. And in her early footage, Shauna can get takedowns and get control on the ground and land some ground and pound. So I think Shauna Bannon's probably the rightful favorite. Probably wouldn't bet on it. And I think she should probably win because Ardelean hasn't really shown much to me to be a UFC level fighter. Like, the girls that she's beating on the regional scene are terrible too. They're like 0-2, 0-1 type of thing. And then she's losing to the Zhang Wei Li's. At least she's taking those fights. I'll give her credit for that.
So random that she fought.
Yeah.
it's so random.
The Zhang Wei Li and Diana Belbita. And I mean, Belbita is not like the greatest UFC fighter, but she's still a girl that has some UFC fights and some UFC wins. Yeah, just super low level. I guess I'll take Shauna Bannon for the pick, but yeah, it's greasy.
Yep.
Moving up the card, we got Sam Patterson coming in at -360 against Kiefer Crosbie, sitting at +260. Crosbie looking to get his first UFC dub after the loss to Kevin Jousset last year at was it in Australia, I believe. Yeah. And then Sam Patterson got his first UFC dub earlier this year on the Canada card. Got a submission against Johan Lioness. He's looking to keep that train rolling up at his new weight class of 170 after he got knocked out by Yanala Ashmoose at 155. He said this whole chin probably ain't holding up at 155. He goes up to 170, has some success. Do you think he can keep it going here against Kiefer Crosbie?
I think if he can survive the first round, not if he can survive the first round, because it's not like Kiefer Crosbie's like this UFC dominator in round one or anything. But if he fights well in the first and gets Kiefer Crosbie tired, which I think is going to happen, I think he really takes over the fight in round 2 and round 3. Patterson's extremely long. His striking, he's not the most powerful guy in the world. He's not the best striker, but he's so long and he uses his jab well. And he's good enough to where it makes it hard for guys to get on the inside on him, especially when he's so much longer and bigger. But Kiefer Crosbie is explosive in the first 5 minutes. He closes the distance well. He throws some big shots. Like we saw it against Kevin Jousset. Like he actually closed the distance against him really well, and Jousset's like a decent kickboxer. So if Kiefer Crosby's winning the fight, I think it's by first round knockout. And if he's not, I think he's going to get taken down eventually and submitted. I don't think Patterson, while Kiefer Crosby has some energy, I don't think Patterson's necessarily going to land takedowns early in the fight because Kiefer Crosby is like a shorter, stocky, strong guy. But as the fights wear on and he gets tired, I think Patterson can at least take his back or drag him down. And once he does, I think it's going to be wraps. But, like on Johan Lioness, that was my big concern in that fight was that Lioness was just going to clip him early. But I bet Sam Patterson pretty big by this on the submission, which was like plus, I want to say it was only like plus 300 or 400. But you just knew that Lioness gets tired and gets his back taken. And that's exactly what happened in that fight. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a submission for Patterson here. If not, it's Kiefer Crosby round 1 KO. We've seen Patterson KO'd by Yanal Ashmoose, who's like 5'6", 5'7". All he did was close the distance with a big explosion and hit him with a massive right hand, and that was all she wrote. So, yeah, I'm going to take Patterson for the pick, but I'm just a little cautious on betting this fight so far. I don't know, man. It's just a weird one. I got to see more Sam Patterson before I'm comfortable parlaying him or taking anything else at minus 360.
Yeah, it's gonna suck though, because like Sam Patterson's sub prop is probably not gonna be great at all. Because
it's gonna be like plus 130.
Yeah, he's coming off a sub, and Kiefer's coming off a submission loss, and that's just always been his downfall. I mean, in his professional career, he's been sub twice. Even in his amateur career, he's got sub like 3 or 4 times. So, yeah, Crosby's just a guy that wants to walk forward and get in your face and brawl it out, and Patterson can struggle with that. But I think he's probably, I wouldn't even say probably, he's definitely the more skilled fighter in this spot, and he's worthy of being the favorite. Minus 360 though, I probably wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't really throw it in a parlay. If you're like real serious about betting, because like, he could get clipped first round. But he's the more skilled fighter. He should win this fight, and he's going to have his chances on the feet to land something big on Crosby. Kind of like Jousset did, and then when it's on the ground, he's just a better grappler. He should probably be able to find a submission. So, yeah, Sam Patterson is the pick for me. Not really too much to say on that one because it's low level. You got one guy that's a brawler, one guy that has some chin issues, but he does seem to look a little bit more filled out at 170. I think that's probably his rightful weight class because he's a tall boy. So, Sam Patterson is the pick. Up the card, we got Oban Elliott coming in at plus 128 against Preston Parsons, sit at minus 164. This line is continuing to closen as Oban Elliott's, I think, down to plus 105. Preston Parsons sitting at like minus 135. So it seems like a lot of people are looking at Oban Elliott as the underdog and liking that. He's coming off a win over Val Woodburn, and Preston Parsons is coming off a win against Matthew Semelsberger. These guys both like to grapple. Neither of them have really heavy hands, and they're actually all their losses, I think, come by knockout, except for Preston Parsons. It's got like one submission loss or something like that, one decision loss. Yeah, one submission, one decision. But they've been chinned a couple times, and I don't know that they're gonna have to worry about that here because neither of them hold a big power. But how do you see this fight going?
Yeah, as this line gets closer, like I'm very interested on the Preston Parsons side, just based off, the higher level experience for sure. And if this turns into a grappling match, like Preston Parsons very slick. I think he's got a good enough gas tank. We see him kind of dog fights out in the later rounds, which, I don't know if Oban Elliott has that, to compete with a guy with more experience like this, if it does turn into a dogfight. Like I was very impressed with Preston Parsons' ability to take Matthew Semelsberger down 7 times, land some ground and pound, a few good submission attempts that he almost had locked in later in the fight, and even beating Elvin Elder by a mile. I mean, he outlanded him 75-27 with strikes, had 4 takedowns, 5 submission attempts, had mount a few times. And was landing really good elbows from the top and even on the feet in that fight. I was a little impressed with Parsons' ability to close the distance and land a big right hand when he had to. I just think he's a guy that has the grappling, the wrestling, and the submission game, and is constantly getting better with his striking to become a complete fighter. And I do think he is going to be a little bit better than Oban Elliott here. Elliott's a guy that has the tendency to kind of make some fights boring. I know his last one, Val Woodburn was hitting him with some big shots at times. He was hitting Val with some big shots. It was kind of a crazy fight at times. But other than that, Oban will take you down, maybe look for a submission here and there, kind of, just get control time, win fights that way until he finds a sub. But you're going up against a guy who has that style as well, a guy who's very good with that game, a guy who might hit just a little bit harder too, in my opinion. So I got to go with Preston Parsons. I like that the line's closing. If it gets to a good enough number, probably going to pull the trigger.
Oban's one of these guys that's got me twice, man. On the Contender Series, I loaded up on Kape Brito because Brito is this dangerous Brazilian, and I thought Brito's going to knock him out because Oban's been knocked out twice. Super hittable on the feet. And Brito gets taken down in the first, gets wet blanketed, and then round 2 puts a beating on Oban Elliott. Is just cracking him with everything. Nearly landed a couple submissions, gassed himself out, and then Oban won the 3rd round. So Oban won that fight, and then the same thing against Val Woodburn. I'm like, Val has a good chance to crack him. And his KO prop was like plus 600. Round 1, cracks him, nearly gets him out of there, and then Oban just wet blankets him for the next 2 rounds. I don't know that he's going to wet blanket Preston Parsons, but I also don't know that Preston Parsons has the power to land anything big on Oban. And I think grappling for grappling, I think Preston Parsons might be a little bit better, but I don't know that, him as a favorite would really do it for me. I think if it was more like a pick'em or even a slight dog on Preston Parsons, then I'd be more inclined to take him there. Because I think Oban's good. He's super tough. He's got good grappling. He's got good wrestling. But he hasn't really faced another grappler at the UFC level. So I don't know that Preston Parsons is going to struggle to out-grapple him. And I've seen Preston Parsons grapple, and it's really good. His UFC losses aren't really that bad to me. I mean, lost to Daniel Rodrigues, and then Trevin Giles in a fight that I thought Preston Parsons won, honestly. I was there in attendance, and I thought Preston Parsons did the better work throughout the fight to get a win. And his wins in the UFC have been pretty dominant. Matthew Semelsberger handled Evan Elder. So I got to go with Preston Parsons for a pick. But this could be a decision that, 29-28 either way, and comes down to it pretty close. So I probably wouldn't get too invested, but Preston Parsons is my pick. Moving on, we got Mick Parkin and Lucas Brzeski. Brzeski coming in as a plus 200 dog against Mick Parkin, sit at minus 265. Mick Parkin coming off the win against Mo Usman, who we saw last week. It was an absolute stud. So a big win for Mick Parkin there. And Lucas Brzeski coming off the win against Walter Walker. Big upset that I called on the show. I think you might have too. Last time against Walter, where he was like plus 300 at the time we broke it down. And I called that shit straight up, man. I was like, Brzeski, he's going to win. And I think he probably wins by decision. The worst part is I didn't bet it. That was the worst part. I did bet the over 1.5 though. I still cashed on it, but really wish I would have went with my balls there. Here we go. Mick Parkin, Lucas Brzeski. What do you got?
Yeah, so dude, Brzeski's another fighter that gets so much hate. Like everybody hates on this guy. They never give him a chance. Which is why he was such a big dog against Walter Walker. That and like the fights he's losing, Waldo Cortez Acosta hit him behind the head in that first round, and you could tell that's what did it. Like he kind of turned, shot to the back of the head. That's all she wrote. Before that, he's getting beat by Carl Williams, who is an extremely good wrestler, which Brzeski is not really. And he was just able to take him down and hold him there when he did and just win the fight by decision. And then he lost a split decision to Martin Budai, who just beat Andrei Arlovsky by split decision. And before that, his only loss is Shamil Gatsiev in the UFC and has a ton of wins on his record. I think he's only got 2 losses in his pro career. Yeah, he's 14-2. So he's going to split decision. What's that?
Let me add to this. So I was looking at it earlier. Lucas Brzeski's losses, he's got 3 losses in the UFC. If you combine their records in the UFC, they're 13-2.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's pretty damn good. And he arguably should have beat Martin Budai.
Yeah.
It was a split decision that I think he probably won. So those are his losses in the UFC, 13-2. And I know Mick Parkin's 2-0, 3-0 in the UFC, but just to put it in perspective, he's not losing to like bumps,
Yep. Yeah, and the thing about him too is he's not one of these big heavyweights. Like he's a guy that, like, you see it right here, weight 236. Like he's not gonna be 265 and super fat or anything. There's a time when Brzeski was like absolutely shredded and was obviously on steroids. And
Yeah.
you know, coming off those, took some losses, doesn't look as cut up in his fights now. But he's the guy too, his fought to decision before in hard fought battles, which is probably what this is gonna be. Mick Parkin is every bit at 265. He is a big guy, and I think his path to victory here is going to have to be to get the takedowns and just control him on the ground, because we've seen that happen to Brzeski before. But if it stays on the feet, I actually think Brzeski's faster than Parkin. He's more athletic, and it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Parkin is probably going to be a little heavier handed, but Parkin also, for a heavyweight, is not putting guys away. This guy does not finish fights. He goes to decision, like you said. He beat Muhammad Usman, but in the grand scheme of things, like if you would have called Muhammad Usman as the winner, people might have said like, bad decision, but it wouldn't have been like out of this world. Like I've seen much worse decisions than that. And you look at Mo Usman go in there and just look like a kindergartner against his opponent last Saturday. So, yeah, dude, I think this is a crazy line. Minus 265 on Parkin, who goes to decisions and has won a controversial one against Kyle Machado, and then arguably, could have got the decision against them against Mo Usman. I'm just not real into it, honestly. I think Brzeski is going to make this somewhat close. So for the pick, I'm going to say Mick Parkin goes and tries to use a little bit of wrestling here, gets the win. But I wouldn't be parlaying him because this has Parlay Buster written all over it.
I think this line is nuts, man. Like it's crazy. Because Mick Parkin did not face a fighter with a winning record until he fought on the Contender Series. And he was a plus 210 underdog on the Contender Series. Wins that fight. Makes his UFC debut against Jamal Pogues as a plus 135 underdog. Who the hell is an underdog to Jamal Pogues? He beats him by decision. Then he's a minus 360 favorite against Kyle Machado. Wins by the skin of his teeth. And then he's faces Muhammad Usman, and the betting or the odds makers are like, all right, we got to lower this because Mick Parkin might not be as good as we think. He's a minus 150 favorite against Mo Usman and barely wins by the skin of his teeth. And now he's a minus 265 favorite against Lucas Brzeski. Like, I get he's the bigger dude, trains with Tom Aspinall. That doesn't mean anything to me. Like,
Dontel Mays also trains with John Jones.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't matter if you train with him. Like, you might still be bad. And I'm not saying Mick Parkin's the worst heavyweight out there because he's managed to beat 3 other heavyweights in the UFC. But I don't think he's that much worse than or that much better than Lucas Brzeski. Like, on the feet, I think Brzeski has a lot more volume. I think he has just better striking overall. Mick Parkin does have some decent leg kicks, but I think the only way that he could cover this minus 265 is if he gets him to the ground, because that's where Brzeski has really struggled in the UFC is getting taken down and getting control. But other than that, I mean, he's looked okay. Like that KO to Waldo was straight up to the back of the head. Like, there's no chance he was going to survive that. Just get punched full force to the back of the head. And then, Mick Parkin's really not a guy that shoots a lot of takedowns. Like, he got 3 against Kyle, but he didn't really do much with him, and he kind of needed him at that point. That was like the only way he was winning. And didn't shoot any against Muhammad Usman. So if he just comes in here and thinks he's going to outstrike Lucas Brzeski, I don't think he's going to do that, because he doesn't really got big power, doesn't have a lot of volume, doesn't have a lot of movement, and Brzeski's going to throw. And just like he did against Walter Walker, he's going to just land more, and he can win on the scorecard. So, I mean, I guess I'll take Lucas Brzeski for a pick because, I mean, I laid it out again. This is the Walter Walker thing again. Like, I'll lay it out again. I don't think he should be this big of an underdog. And, I might look to bet it just because I think the line is crazy. But Lucas Brzeski will be the pick for me.
Yeah, I mean, against Kyle Machado, Parkin was outlanded badly, like 76-39 on significant strikes. Kyle Machado goes in there and loses against Dontel Mays. I mean, fairly 30-27, 29-28 at best. Got knocked down by Dontel Mays. And that's a guy that you probably should have got your, first loss to in Kaio. So yeah, this one's going to be a lot closer, man. I'm interested to take the dog here at this price too, because I almost want to wait actually. Just being Mick Parkin's from over there, he's going to be his home crowd. He's going to, a lot of
Yeah.
people wanting to bet on these fights are going to be throwing Mick Parkin in their parlays. You're probably going to get like closer to plus 250 by the end of the week.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. I'll just waiting and see where it goes. But yeah, enough about that fight. Let's move on. We got Kylan Loughran coming in at minus 218 against Jake Hadley. And Jake Hadley coming in on short notice to fill in for Ramon Taveras. He's going up a weight class to 135. He's 2-2 in the UFC, coming off 2 straight losses, I believe. Right? Yeah, 2 straight
Charles
losses.
Johnson.
Cody and Charles. So maybe just a spot where he thinks he's going to fill in on short notice and maybe save his UFC career. Even if he loses, it kind of did them a favor. But Kylan Loughran, 1-1 in the UFC. His only losses to Taylor Lapilus, but he is coming off the win against Angel Pacheco, fight that he looked pretty good in, and favorite again here. What do you think?
Yeah, this is in my head. Jake Hadley is so much better than he actually is, or what he's looked like in his last 2 fights. After he came into the UFC and got his first submission, and then beat Malcolm Gordon, like the way he won those 2 fights, I was thinking that Jake Hadley was going to be a guy to watch out for in the UFC. Like his striking is pretty clean with his boxing. He has a good jab, a good right hand behind it. But on the ground, like his submissions are very, very slick. His wrestling's not bad, and he's very strong. Like you just look at him, he cuts a lot of weight to get down to 125. Like he's a big guy for the division. But then he loses to guys like Cody Durden, who's good with wrestling. Loses to Charles Johnson, who can stuff the wrestling at times and just kind of land the volume on the feet and has cardio for days. Loughran has the wrestling to beat him for sure. Like you look at guys like Durden, who's able to just take him down. Even though Durden got caught in some bad situations in that fight, he had success with the wrestling. He had success with the control. And Loughran is super strong for this division. Like this dude's shredded. He's stocky, and when he gets guys down, like he's almost like he's glue on him, man. Like you can get back to your feet, but he's still gonna have a hold of you. He's gonna drag you back down. He's good in that department, and he holds some power on his feet. He's not the most technical striker. He doesn't throw the most volume in the world, but he hits pretty hard. I think Jake Hadley, I just look at this fight. I'm like, okay, if you stay on the feet with him, you run the risk of kind of getting caught. Like we just saw you get dropped by Charles Johnson, who obviously, knocked out Van. So that argument that Johnson doesn't have much power is kind of, in limbo right now. But, you run the risk of getting clipped. And if you want to try to wrestle with him, like I don't think you can take him down to get dominant position, and you might end up getting taken down yourself. And I think his only hope is some kind of submission here, and I just don't really see it happening on Loughran. I think Loughran's too strong. I think he's going to be the one on top if it goes to the ground. I just don't see many spots where Jake Hadley is going to like dominate or win this fight. So, especially being over, short notice too. I don't think Jake Hadley on a short notice fight coming off of 2 losses like this, I don't really like it. It's not enough time to go back to the drawing board and really kind of revamp yourself and go in here with confidence. So I'm going to take Loughran for the pick. I think he's just kind of going to outdog him. He's going to be a little bit stronger, take him down, just do what he does. So not going to bet it though, because at the end of the day, I was high on Jake Hadley once. I know he's got the skills there, and you just never know when he's going to show up for one of these fights and have a good performance. So, yeah, but I'm going to take Loughran for the pick.
Yeah, I've got to go with Loughran here too. I think Loughran can get the wrestling whenever he wants, and I think on the feet he'll probably hit harder. He looks like he could take a shot. The only thing I hate with Loughran is like the dude leaves his chin out there all the time. Like he tries to do this thing where he'll land and then he'll pull back, but his chin's there and his hands are
Yeah.
down, and then he'll get like clipped, but he'll just take it because he's got like a massive head. And the guys that he's been facing don't really hit the hardest. And he's got good volume on the feet. He's got good wrestling, and I don't think Jake Hadley is really going to come in here and knock him out. I mean, his wins in the UFC really aren't that good either. I mean, Malcolm Gordon, Carlos Candelario, even at flyweight, they're just not that good. And I think Kylan Loughran is probably the rightful favorite here. Can win it pretty much anyway, other than maybe submission. He really didn't show much submission skills against Angel Pacheco. I mean, he had Angel Pacheco in a lot of bad spots, and I'm like, bro, how do you not finish that? But at least you can go 3 rounds. Yeah, I mean, Loughran, not really much to say on this one other than Loughran is going to be my pick, and I think he should probably win this one. It's a tough matchup for Jake because if he comes in here and expects to outbox him, if he is about boxing him, he's probably just going to get taken down. So it's a tough one for him. Up a weight class too. Loughran is a thick dude, so I got to go with Loughran.
Yeah, Loughran, his leg kicks are good too. Like he had Angel Pacheco like damn near out on leg kicks. Like Pacheco could barely stand up. And you saw Hadley kind of get his legs kicked by Charles Johnson in that last fight a little bit too. So yeah, I think Loughran's going to do a little damage. I like it for the pick.
Moving on, we got Molly McCann coming in at -295 against Bruna Brasil, sitting at +220. Bruna Brasil looking to spoil the show with Molly McCann. Molly McCann coming off the armbar win against Diana Belbita, her first ever submission in her professional career. And she's coming in here maybe looking for another finish against Bruna Brasil, who's looking to get back on track. She's 1-2 in the UFC, coming off the loss to Loma Lubunme. But the last time that she was in England, she got a win over Shauna Bannon. What do you like in this one?
Oh, yeah. Bruna Brasil is a girl to me who has a lot of skills. You watch her strike. She lands some really good kicks. We saw her put Marnik Man out with one, and Marnik Man's a girl who doesn't really get knocked out a lot. She gets beat up a lot, but it's hard to put her out. She's got an iron will to survive. I wouldn't even say will to win. She just has a will to survive to the end in fights. But Bruna Brasil in the last fight too probably beat Shauna Bannon because she was able to mix in a few takedowns. Like if she doesn't do that, or I guess her second to last fight, if she doesn't do that, like that's a very close fight. The significant strikes were neck and neck. She didn't really pull away from Bannon in that fight where I thought she should have. I bet Bruna in that spot, but I thought she was really going to land a lot more volume on the feet. She was going to land bigger shots, and it was somewhat even. So, if she can mix in takedowns against Molly McCann, fair play. That's probably the route you're going to have to take because Molly in her home crowd, vibing off the energy in there, swinging for the fences, hitting her hard. I think she's going to be hard to beat in Manchester. So I'm going to take Molly McCann for the pick. I think she's got the knockout upside too. We've seen Bruna Brasil put away. We've seen Molly land some big shots on some girls. Molly's aggressive. I showed the submission in her last fight. Her ground game's getting good too. I think she's at the rightful weight class now to where, she's not going to be severely undersized in all these fights. She might be at a little height disadvantage here, but strength wise, I think she's the side. Striking wise, I think she's going to land the bigger shots and, a little home cooking if you need it too, if this thing goes to a decision. So yeah, everything for me is pointing to Molly McCann.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if Bruna Brasil had more output, I would love her to possibly give Molly a tough fight here, but she just doesn't throw much on the feet. And she doesn't really, look for a lot of takedowns. So she just doesn't really do much when she gets in the octagon. She looks like she has good skills, and she's a big girl for the weight class, 5'5", 65.5-inch reach. She's got real nice striking when she lets her hands go, when she lets her kicks go, but she just doesn't do much. And maybe this is the time where she really lets it all hang out and she lets it go, but until I see it, I can't really bank on that. I mean, she had an okay fight against Loma. But that's your girl, Loma. Loma's
Don't
a tough
mess with Loma.
Never mess with Loma. I mean,
Loma would whoop Molly's ass.
Oh, Loma would give her the work. But yeah, man, she gets outstruck. She has a terrible striking differential. And she has a great striking accuracy. It's like when she throws, she lands, but she just doesn't throw that often. So I can't really say that she gives Molly much to deal with on the feet. And I don't see her really going for takedowns all that often. And she hasn't really showed like a great ground game to get Molly out of there on the ground. So Molly probably wins on the feet, stuffs the takedowns, and could find a knockout round 2 or 3. And it's a good night for the people in Manchester. So yeah, I'll take Molly for the pick. Moving on, we got Nathaniel Wood taking on Daniel Pineda. Daniel Pineda coming in as a big underdog here. 38 years of age. Nathaniel Wood minus 500. Now, Daniel Pineda is one of these guys that as a big dog, you always like to take a look at it because he's a kill or be killed, man. And he's 5-6 in the UFC. He got popped for the sauce like multiple times in the PFL. And then he comes over to the UFC and picks up a couple wins, couple losses, but he's going to go out there and let it all hang out. I mean, he's got heavy hands. He's got good submissions on the ground. And Nathaniel Wood is your fighter that is very disciplined, very technical, pretty small for 145. I mean, he's 5'6", 69-inch reach. I mean, he fought at 135, but he was like killing himself to get down there. And he moves up to 145. He's been doing good work there. But he's coming off the loss to Muhammad Naimov, a fight that he probably could have won if there was a point taken for all the illegal stuff that Naimov was doing. But yeah, I mean, he's a good fighter, but I don't know that he covers minus 500 here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this line is coming from Pineda's older. He's taken a lot of damage in his career, and against Caceres, he was worn down in rounds 2 and 3. Was eating body kicks, and could have been put out easily if Caceres would have just really stepped on the gas or hit him with one more body shot. And like Nathaniel Wood is kind of a cardio machine. Like the guy can fight for 3 rounds. He comes on strong in the later rounds. Against Naimov, he was taken down early in the fight. And Naimov did a really good job of kind of minimizing Nathaniel's Wood to get any kind of volume off or significant strikes. Like round 2, Naimov landed 2 takedowns and Nathaniel Wood landed 1 significant strike out of 1 attempt. So, yeah, I don't see Pineda really going out here and wrestling Nathaniel Wood like that. I don't think, he's really got it in him. And if he does, I think he's going to gas. And I think Nathaniel Wood is going to have more volume. He's going to be the faster fighter here. 500 though, minus 500, not a great line to take, especially Pineda, is dangerous. We've seen Nathaniel Wood dropped against Andre Feely very early in that fight. And, if he catches a big shot from Pineda here early in the fight, there's a chance he could go down as well. So, but ultimately, Daniel Pineda, older guy, Nathaniel Wood, like I said, I like his cardio. I like his volume late. He comes on strong, and I really think it's Daniel Pineda doesn't win the first round. He's kind of out of the fight, in my opinion. So, yeah, I got to stick with Nathaniel Wood. But minus 500 on anybody in the UFC, you might as well just pass on it or find a prop because we've seen it time and time again. These big favorites find ways to lose.
Yeah, I mean, Nathaniel Wood, like you said, got dropped by Andre Feely, and it won't show it on the stats, but he got dropped by Muhammad Naimov right off the rip in that fight too. And Pineda's dangerous, man. So you're probably better off live betting it or taking Nathaniel Wood like rounds 2 or 3 or just some type of knockout prop or something like that. Maybe decision. I mean, Pineda, he's had 6 losses by decision. So he's a tough guy, but he just doesn't do much after the first round or even, halfway through the second round. So bad gas tank, but he's dangerous early. He's always going to go for it. He's going to throw hard. He's going to go for the subs. But if he doesn't get it, tends to slow down and Nathaniel Wood could probably take over. So Nathaniel Wood is the pick. He's the better fighter, no doubt about it, but he's not as dangerous as Pineda early. That's why, we're cautioning you on the minus 500 because that's how a parlay gets ruined. He gets knocked out in the first or clubbed and subbed and something like that. But Nathaniel Wood is the pick. Moving on, we got Muhammad Mokaev coming in at minus 146 against Manel Kape. Kape, got to spoil the show here, man. I need to see Muhammad Mokaev lose, man. Everybody, how can you really like his style? Let's just say that. Like, the style from Mokaev is not fan friendly, but he has had some good performances or like good moments in his career. I mean, he's pulled off these round 3 submissions that are just like clutching up a win where he almost gets his knee shredded against Filio. He's down 2-0 against Tim Elliott. Finds a 3rd round submission. And then his last fight against Perez, where he had the excuses that he was sick and all that. Not a great performance from him, but still managed to get a win. Still undefeated. Never lost in his professional nor amateur career. So this guy just doesn't know how to lose. And Manel Kape has been the guy that doesn't know how to make weight. So we always got to look at that. We got to watch and see if he makes weight. But he's been good in the UFC, man. It's 4-2, 4-5 win streak. And it's a good fight, man. I'm really looking forward to this one just to see how Manel can handle the wrestling of Mokaev. And if Mokaev can't get the wrestling going, how is he going to strike with Manel? So I'm interested in this one, man. What do you got?
Yeah, realistically, from Manel Kape, I think his only loss in the UFC should be Alexandre Pantoja. I thought he beat Mateus Nicolau in that fight. It was a split decision. He took the loss. Second fight in the UFC, which was 2 losses in a row. Since then, Vito De Osborne, Zalga Sumagulov, David Dvorak, and Felipe Dos Santos. And, if he would have came in there and finished Felipe Dos Santos, I think you probably see him as the favorite here, or just right at pick'em. I think people thought Felipe Dos Santos making his debut in the UFC, and he goes all the way to a decision, which was competitive with Manel Kape. But I honestly think Felipe is just a savage, man. The guy is tough as nails. He can strike. He's always going to be. He's kind of that Charles Oliveira style. He's kill or be killed, and he's going to win a lot of fights in the UFC. And Kape was able to drop him. Kape was able to land 112 significant strikes on him, land a takedown of his own. So yeah, I don't think Kape deserves to be at plus 144. I think the line's tightened a little bit here because you look at the Alexandre Pantoja fight. He took Pantoja down twice. He does have good wrestling. He does have grappling. I think his defensive wrestling is going to be good as well. I'm not high on Mokaev at all. I think he's been lucky a little bit in his UFC career, which you have to be lucky in this sport to go on these crazy runs like this. You got to get a break here and there. But when I really look at it, the fight with Malcolm Gordon, Charles Johnson, Cody Durden, Charles Johnson and Cody Durden is good wins. I thought the sub after the big flying knee against Durden was kind of, if he doesn't land the knee, I don't know if he gets the sub in that fight. But Rafael Fio had him in that knee bar, which was disgusting, and most people tap. So you got to give it to Mokaev there. He's got some heart and toughness. Tim Elliott was up on the scorecards going into round 3 and, gets submitted with 2 minutes left, or else Tim Elliott's getting his hand raised in that one and gives Mokaev his first loss. And there's a world where you could have had Perez beating Mokaev there. And if that's a 5-round fight, Perez completely takes over in that 4th and 5th. I thought Mokaev looked a little nervous to be on the feet with a guy like Perez. And I think once the wrestling, he was having a little trouble later in the fight. I think he started to kind of just go into survival mode, hoping he was up on the cards. I just think against a guy like Kape, man, if you can't land the takedowns, Kape's a more aggressive striker than Perez. He's a way better striker than Tim Elliott and Fio and Malcolm Gordon and basically everybody that Mokaev has fought. So if you can't take Kape down, there's not a chance in this world you're going to stand with Kape if you're Mokaev here. Like, you're getting absolutely pieced up while this fight's on the feet. I don't know, man. I think this is Manel Kape going to hand him his first loss. Like I said, I think Mokaev's been a little lucky in spots. I don't think he's quite there yet, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just think he needs a little bit more time until he's at the top level. Like, let's say Mokaev goes in there against Alexandre Pantoja. He is getting dog walked for this foreseeable future. Like, there's a reason they didn't give him that fight, and they gave it to Steve Erceg in the last one. So I think Manel Kape is a top fighter in this division. Striking's on point. Wrestling defense is going to be on point. I think he's going to give him the big O.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is classic striker versus grappler. And I got to give Mokaev credit because, I mean, he has never lost. And he wins fights. Like, you can't just take that away from him. Like, he wins fights. But one thing that I've seen is just like, he's tough, man. I mean, he's never going to give up on himself. That's a big thing here. I mean, the fact that we've seen him into the 3rd round and still be able to finish fights is good because Manel Kape, even if he's starting to piece him up, like Mokaev might not go away. Maybe he could find a round 3 submission once again. If Kape's winning the first 2 and Mokaev's just able to get him down, get the back or something like that, he still has that in him. So that's good to see. But I mean, I love watching Manel Kape on the feet, man. He's so fast. He picks his shots so nicely. There are times that I wish he was a little bit more higher volume, just because it would separate himself a little bit, but he picks his shots so nicely. Like, you may not see it as far as like the judges when they're in there, but like he lands just the cleanest shots out of the weirdest spots that you wouldn't even think of. And I think he could probably do that here to Mokaev. Obviously, it comes down to the takedown defense, which he's shown pretty good takedown defense, like 77%. And when he was getting taken down, he was reversing, getting back up to his feet. The biggest thing with Mokaev is he doesn't do any damage when he's on the ground. He just literally holds you there, or he'll hold you up against the cage, throw his little leg lace in there, and hold on to your back. So he's just winning minutes, like holding guys, and he needs to at least evolve with his game to do some damage. Otherwise, you can't go up into the top 6, top 7 of the flyweight division and expect to win fights by holding guys. Now, Perez has some really good takedown defense, and Mokaev went like 3 of 20 on takedowns, and he looked terrible. But he still managed to win because he was actually throwing on the feet. He was actually throwing and landed more than Perez, which was surprising to me. But Perez was just too busy defending everything. He probably couldn't get anything going on the feet. I think Kape's got to find a confidence to let his hands go here. Otherwise, he's going to get into a fight where he can't really get anything going, and he's just defending everything. Now, he trains at Extreme Couture with really good guys, really good grapplers, the Boshrats, Patchy Mix, all those good guys, Marab, all of them. So I think he's prepared. And I got to go with Minnow Kape here for a pick. And I think he's the better fighter. I mean, he's been around combat sports for a while. He was in Ryzen for a while, beat Kaya Sakura, who everyone's high on coming into the UFC, knocked him out actually in round 2. I'm going to go with the striker here. The guy that's doing the more damage may be in enemy territory, but if the judges are judging how they're supposed to, I think Manel Kape's probably going to do the more damage, so I'll take him for a pick.
Yeah, I mean, the wrestling too. That's like the biggest thing I'm excited to see is like what level, Manel Kape compared to Mokaev. Obviously, offensively, Mokaev is going to be the one landing takedowns, but Manel Kape is so strong, and with the takedown defense, like I'm going to be so excited to see what happens in that first round. Because if he stuffs him in the first, like I think Manel Kape is going to get to him. I think it's going to be frustrating for Mokaev, and Manel Kape might just keep this thing on the feet and just put a beating on him. So, oh man, I don't know. I want to pull the trigger on the bet, but there's a world too where Mokaev just shocks us and takes him down and submits him too. I don't know.
I will say this, Mokaev's been a massive favorite throughout his whole career.
Yeah.
And this is the best line that you'll have gotten on him. Minus 146 is a lot lower compared to everything that he's been. Minus 1,000, minus 400, minus 600 type of thing, minus 1,400. You're getting at least a playable price on Mokaev, so I won't knock you if you want to take that, but I got to go with Kape. Moving on, we got Arnold Allen coming in at minus 260 against Giga Chikadze. Chikadze coming in here off the win to Alex Caceres. He's getting older. He's had a couple of injuries. He finds himself coming in as the underdog against Arnold Allen, who has lost 2 in a row, but is still a minus 260 favorite. His losses come to Movsar Evloev and Max Holloway, so can't knock him for that. He's going to be the hometown guy. Who do you got?
Yeah, losing to Max Holloway and Movsar Evloev, those are 2 guys at the very tip top of the division. Max Holloway probably fighting for the title. Movsar Evloev fighting Aljamain Sterling. Winner of that probably getting a title shot. So, that's good experience there. You're kind of seeing the best striker in the division and arguably the best grappler in the division back to back. I think that's going to play good here against Giga, who is a phenomenal striker. The kickboxing is really good. He hits hard. But we've seen guys be able to kind of go out there and hang with him for one, like Calvin Kattar. But if you can just not, find a way to make Giga kind of fight a dirtier, nastier fight. I think Arnold Allen's a guy that can kind of implement that game plan. Because if you stay at range with Giga, he's going to kick your legs off. He's going to come upstairs with the high kicks. But if you get inside, push him against the cage a little, use your strength, land some good dirty boxing inside, you frustrate him. And once you frustrate him, I think Giga is a guy who we've seen slow down just a little bit in fights towards the end. And Arnold Allen's a guy who's kind of going to dog it out for all 3. So For me, I don't really like this line. I think Chikadze is worthy of being closer to a pick'em in this spot, considering his only loss in the UFC is the Calvin Kattar. Everybody else he's beating. He was on a 3-fight knockout win streak leading into that Calvin Kattar fight against guys like Edson Barboza, Cub Swanson. He's fought some good fighters. Just beat Alex Caceres in a pretty close fight. Chikadze just landed way more damaging shots. But yeah, Arnold Allen's a tough guy as well. I think on the feet, Chikadze is going to make it look pretty. Arnold Allen maybe landing the bigger shots. And if he makes it dirty, I think he's going to walk away a winner here. So I'm going to take Arnold Allen for the pick, but I'm not loving this price whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't love it either. I mean, when the fight got announced, I thought Arnold Allen should probably win. And then I saw the odds and I'm like, Jesus, bro. Like, he's lost 2 fights in a row. Like, I know who he's losing to, but minus 260. And Giga, I mean, he's only lost 1 fight since 2018. I mean, only 1 fight in the UFC. Like, Giga's good, and he's beaten some good guys. But you look at his last fight, and a lot of people are down on him for that, but it was 30-27. 130-27 on all the judges' scorecards. I mean, it might not have been like the beating, or it might not have been a knockout, but Caceres is a tough guy to finish, and Caceres is a guy that could match his length. And ultimately, Giga just did better than him every single round. So Arnold's going to be the shorter guy, maybe a little bit more. I mean, he's younger, obviously. And I think that's probably why a lot of people like Arnold here, because Giga's had some injuries. He's older, but he's still a good fighter. And I think him at this price is pretty crazy because he can keep the range. He's dangerous too. He packs a good punch with his kicks and his hands. And I wouldn't really say Arnold should be minus 260 here. So betting wise, I would probably go dog or pass, but I still do think Arnold Allen probably picks up a win because he can mix in the wrestling. I do think he's a very good fighter. I think he's really solid on the feet. He has a great left hand that he lands, and Giga is a little bit older. So for the pick, I got to go with Arnold Allen. And betting wise, I just wouldn't play it. I just don't see any upside to it. Because even if you bet him by decision, you're probably getting like even money or like you're not getting much. So I think Arnold Allen is probably just a spot to stay away. But he will be the pick.
Another thing that I don't think many people are like talking about or noticing, but Giga is going to be big in there compared to Arnold Allen. Like he's a 6-footer, 145, 4 inches of reach. And, we saw Arnold Allen struggle to really get inside and land some good shots against Holloway, who's like 5'11", 6-footish, and is long too. Like if Giga can keep this thing at range, I do think he's going to, win some minutes in the striking department just with the kicks alone and landing more while Arnold's kind of missing these big shots.
Mm-hmm.
But, like a lot of people expect this thing to go to a decision. I could see somebody getting knocked out here if I'm being honest. Like Chikadze had some injuries. Arnold Allen hits hard. Maybe Chikadze slows down, can't keep up, gets put away. Or maybe Giga just catches Arnold Allen with some kind of big shot to the temple, with whether it's a kick or a punch. I don't know. But it's interesting to me. I want to see what that fight to end inside the distance is because I'm sure you're going to get some decent plus money on it.
Under 2.5 right now is plus 200. So
it's interesting, dude. Like, these pay-per-view cards, the craziest shit happens. I say it every time we have one. Like the weirdest shit happens. These dudes are amped up with the crowd, especially Arnold Allen, going to be fighting in Manchester. I don't know. They're going to look to take each other's head off.
It's a good one. Moving on, we got Christian Leroy Duncan coming in at minus 130 against Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues, sitting at plus 110. This is a late addition. I think Leroy was supposed to fight somebody else, and in steps RoboCop onto the main card of a pay-per-view. Should be a good fight. Maybe it won't be, but that's where it's listed on the Tapology at least. Leroy looks like a great prospect, but he did take a loss to Armin Petrosian, who Armin Petrosian lost or beat Gregory Rodrigues too. So 2 victims of Armin Petrosian. But Leroy's coming off 2 knockout wins. Gregory Rodrigues coming off the knockout win to Brad Tavares. It's a good scrap. Probably want to be this is probably going to be one of those throughout the MMA community where it's like the main event type of pick where you're on one side or the other, and it's very controversial. But who you got?
Yeah, first for Christian Leroy Duncan, like this is a pretty big step up in competition. I was talking to you before this. His wins: Claudio Ribeiro, Dennis Tululan, Dusko Todorovic, and his loss to Armin Petrosian. Now you're getting RoboCop. RoboCop's been in there with everybody. Just knocked out Brad Tavares, also knocked out Dennis Tululan. Chidi and Jaquani, he's been in there with some guys who hit hard. We've seen him knocked out before, like guys like Bruno Ferreira, who we just saw look like the actual Hulk. Like the dude's insane, has the most insane power. But Gregory, tough guy. We've seen him get cuts that you could see inside his head, and he was able to continue and find the win. His toughness is next level, and I think against a guy like Christian Leroy Duncan, like if you can't put him out and RoboCop is still there in the second round, I think he's just got more tools in his arsenal. I think he's going to be the better grappler in this fight. If it goes to the ground, I think RoboCop is going to be a little bit more skilled, and he's going to be able to kind of do what he wants as far as the control goes. I don't know if he can quite submit him, but I think he will be winning minutes on the ground. And like on the feet, yeah, RoboCop gets hit and stuff, but he's no slouch, and he does hold a lot of power too. So CLD is going to have to be careful in that aspect as well. I think like on the feet in that fight against Armin Petrosian, like Christian, he just kind of froze up a little bit when he was fighting a striker who might have been a little more technical and a little better than him. Because Petrosian is a great kickboxer, and he was hitting him. If that happens against RoboCop, RoboCop's going to take over and kind of mix in all of his weapons, and I think he's going to look a little bit better. I'm interested to play him at plus money just because of that experience factor. This is a big step up in competition. That's kind of like a system, you know what I mean? Like RoboCop's been in there with a lot of good guys, way more experience, and if you get plus money on a guy like that, RoboCop's the type of guy I think you have to take at plus money every single time. So I'm going to take RoboCop for the pick. If you are betting on this fight and you're looking for a prop, I mean, if you're on CLD, I think he's got to knock him out, because if he doesn't, I think he's going to wear on him a little bit.
I kind of think the opposite. I mean, obviously he could knock him out, and that's always a worry with Gregory Rodrigues is that chin. Just seems like at times you just press a button and he goes off. And Leroy has some great timing on shots, and he's coming off back-to-back knockouts, so that looks nice. But I think Gregory or CLD could take a page out of Petrosian's book here and just try to use his movement, because he's like an athletic dude that has explosive in and out movements, and maybe that's not something he could do because he does kind of rely on that explosiveness. But you look at the Petrosian fight, and Petrosian just outlanded him, just stay to the outside, pick away, because Gregory's a guy that just very flat-footed. He's going to march forward and very linear. He's not going to create angles. He's just trying to march forward and put you out with big shots, take some in the meantime, and just overwhelm you. And if you could stay to the outside and just chip away, and if you could fight off your back foot, you can beat him. Can CLD do that here? Maybe. We haven't really seen him fight that way, but considering his athletic capabilities, I would think he could do that. So I think that's a path for him to win by decision. Obviously, he could knock him out. But the biggest thing with RoboCop to me would be he needs to mix in some type of offensive wrestling, because it is a great tool in his toolbox and he just rarely uses it. I think in this spot, CLD doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. He's been held down by a lot worse on the regional scene. And Gregory's a good grappler who's big, strong, has good jiu-jitsu. I think he needs to do that here to at least give himself an upper hand in this fight. Because if it's on the feet, I think it's anybody's fight. But if he takes him down, then that's a big advantage. And I would just love to know that he's going to do that, to take him for a pick or even bet on him. But for a pick, I'm still going to go with Gregory. Like you said, he's the more experienced guy. But I see the pass for CLD. But as a favorite, I don't know that I would take him because I don't know that he could do that. But I also don't know that Gregory's going to be able to hold up with his chin. It's a toss-up to me, man. It's a real toss-up. And the slight dog, I guess, is the way I'm going to go with Gregory Rodrigues.
I think it's one, if you can find a split decision prop. At the end of this fight, if this thing goes to a decision, I think both guys are going to have a lot of good moments in the fight. And a lot of times you get big plus money on those props. But as far as RoboCop's chin, I know he took a bad knockout against Bruno Ferreira, but that's only one of 2 times he's ever been knocked out in the or knocked down in the UFC. I guess the other one on Contender Series is what they're counting. Against Jordan Williams, he got knocked out. Other than that, nobody's knocked him down, which is surprising to me. And he's fought some pretty heavy hitters. He took the big ass, cut to Chidi. But other than that,
Yeah,
I don't know.
he gets hit like real clean.
He
Like,
does.
watch his fights, he gets hit clean because all he does is just march you down.
Yeah.
And like if you can find a good angle on him, you can hit him.
Yeah.
So
the thing I noticed, like with Christian Leroy Duncan, when he's the one fighting forward and moving his opponents back, he's very good because he's technical and he does hit hard and his boxing is very slick. But when guys like Petrosian are the ones kind of pushing him back a little bit, he tends to not throw as much volume. And we kind of saw it in that fight where he was outlanded like 90-50, like 7 or 8, I believe, or 89-59. So yeah, it is going to be a close fight though. I can't wait for it. This might be one of the fights of the card, honestly. If these guys actually go out there and don't get into a staring match and decide to just pour it out, it's going to be a fun one.
It's one of the most interesting ones, not like 2 massive names, but a really good matchup. So,
dude, when I look at RoboCop, I'm like, oh, this guy's like 45 years old, man, and then he's only 32.
His prime, 32. So,
yeah.
Good old what is it, Robo-Obama or Obama Cop or something like that.
Obama Cop.
Let's move on. We got Paddy Pimblett coming in at -104, taking on Bobby Green, or actually King Green now. Sit at -122, a very, very slight favorite for King Green, who's 37, coming off the very impressive beating he put on Jim Miller. Did take his licks in that fight, but he put a beating on Jim Miller. And I was watching that fight last night, man. I could not believe that fight went the distance. Like the amount of times and Bobby Green was actually the night that Max Holloway did the thing where he pointed to the ground. Bobby Green did that shit first. He did that shit first earlier in the night, and he almost knocked out Jim Miller doing that. There was like 50 seconds left in the fight or whatever, and he did that. And I had that fight not to go the distance in a 5-legger on Underdog. And that was the only one that didn't hit. Would have been another 3,000. So that was
I remember
a little PTSD for me last night watching that one. But a good fight, a good win for Bobby to get back on track after the loss to Jalen Turner. And then he's taking on the boy Paddy Pimblett, who he called out after that fight. He gets the fight here, going into enemy territory. Paddy coming off the win over Tony Ferguson in the fight that we were both at, right, in December.
Yep.
And a good performance from him. I mean, it's Tony nowadays, but still won the fight pretty easily, dominated. Can he do that here?
You know what scares me just a little bit is I remember being at the Ferguson Paddy fight and Paddy dominated, but there was like a little flurry at the end where Paddy just looked exhausted and Tony was marching forward, landing shots. And I'm like, my mind goes back to that, because if that happens against Bobby Green is going to take advantage on the feet, and he's going to throw 35 punch combinations just to try to get you out of there. And if you just completely shut down from exhaustion,
I will say this though, Paddy, if I'm looking at the stats right now, Paddy landed 70 significant strikes in the first round. So he was going for it. He said it himself. He gassed himself out after the first round after he knocked him down. So
he is a type of fighter though that is, Paddy is talented, but if he smells just a little bit of a finish, he's going for it. Like the guy wants the highlights. Like the guy is not going to shy away from trying to put somebody out, which could be detrimental to him in a fight like this. If this fight was like 5 years ago, I think I'm going Bobby Green all the way. With the speed, athleticism, Bobby Green was so good, in his prime with the head movement and not getting hit and just being able to land volume. Now he's still got the volume, but we've seen him get hit a little bit more as he's, aged a little bit, that leaving the chin up and just leaning back. He's not as fast as he once was with it. These guys he's fighting are younger. They're starting to catch him a little bit. Jalen Turner completely sparked this dude in the first round. And, before that, he had a fight against Drew Dober, a few fights before that where he got completely, his chin completely clean because he was sitting there trying to dip, dodge, weave, and then he catches one on the chin. Like I hate that style of defense on older guys like that, especially guys that, we've seen knocked out recently. Patty does hit hard. He's not like the most clean boxer, in the world, but he does swing hard and he has connected with a lot of guys and he has some knockouts on his record. So, and I think he's going to be a stronger fighter here too. I think if he gets in on like a double leg, I think he will complete those type of takedowns. Bobby's slick on the ground too. He has a ton of experience against jiu-jitsu guys. But Patty being the younger, stronger guy, if he takes Bobby's back, I think Bobby's going to be in some serious trouble here. I was really hesitant to make a pick on this fight because I've gone back and forth over the last few months. I've been thinking about this one for a while, but I am going to go Patty, especially if you're getting him at slight dog odds. I mean, the crowd loves Patty. The judges obviously love Patty. They gave him that Jared Gordon win. He's fighting in Manchester on a pay-per-view card. His first pay-per-view card fighting at home. I think he's going to have a lot of energy. He's going to have what it takes to beat Bobby Green here. I don't know. He just can't sit there and get caught flat-footed staring at Bobby because Bobby is going to land a lot of volume. So if Patty mixes it all together, lands some big shots on the feet, takes him down, repeats that process, I think he'll be okay and he can get the win.
Yeah, this is such a tough one because
This is the most interesting fight on the card.
Yeah, because I liked Patty as like a plus 130, plus 140 underdog because I think he's super live for a knockout because he throws hard. And Bobby with that defense, I mean, he was getting clipped by Jim Miller. And Jim has, some power, some good timing, but it was like every time he landed something clean, Bobby felt it. And he wasn't landing all that often. So it's not even like Patty needs to land a bunch of big shots on Bobby to get him out. And, we saw what Jalen Turner did to Bobby after he was able to land a big one. And I think Patty's a little bit more dangerous on the feet than Jim Miller. But on the other side, Bobby he's a guy that's just going to go in there and he's going to pressure you. And if he can get his game going, then he kind of starts to drown you a little bit. And I don't know that Patty has faced any type of striker like this where he's going to throw 100, 150 significant strikes in a round if it's taking place on the feet. Patty, I don't think he can keep up with that type of volume. I don't know that he would be able to adjust on the feet, but he does have his ground game to fall back on. I think he's got okay takedowns, but when he gets you to the ground, and he's got really good jiu-jitsu, and I think that's a big upside here because if he gets Bobby to the ground, Bobby has pretty solid takedown defense, but he does not the greatest off his back. And I think Patty could probably bank around if he gets him down to the ground just by controlling him, getting to the back. And he's really good once he gets to the back. So overall, I think Patty has a chance to knock him out, a chance to sub him, and a chance to win by decision if he's able to get the ground game going. So I guess I'll go with Patty. But if this line continues to move in Patty's favor, and I'm probably sure it will, like he's a fan favorite fighting in his home country, then maybe a Bobby as an underdog price might be a decent play because, I mean, he's had some great fights, man. Like, I think back to that Fiziev fight, like when he fought Fiziev and he was just taking on a really amazing striker just head-to-head and outstriking him. And, he lost that fight, but it was a real good fight. And then just putting Nasrat in an absolute – just beat the brakes off of Nasrat. I mean, just destroyed him. So if Patty can't get takedowns, then it's a tough fight for him. But I also think Patty's super durable on the feet. That shot that he took in his debut, I'll never forget that. The sound that made at the apex when he got cracked with like a left hook or something. And he didn't even flinch. I was like, oh, shit, dude. Like, this guy just took a left hook from hell and didn't even flinch. And it sounded like a baseball bat hitting like a pole. It was crazy. But, yeah, I guess I'll go with Patty for a pick right now. But we'll see how that plays out throughout the week.
My last thing with Patty is he kind of fell off with the fans a little bit after the Jared Gordon fight. Like people just kind of turned on him. And then he beats Tony Ferguson, who Tony Ferguson is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. And everybody loves him. And then you beat him up and now people hate you even more. I mean, he's got a chance here to come out here. And if he just sparks Bobby Green with a shot, I think he kind of gains some fans back. Like it's a big opportunity for him against a big name. And on Bobby Green's side, the one thing that makes me a little weary is this guy did 5 weight cuts in 12 months, April 2023 to April 2024. At his age, back in February, completely sparked unconscious and took 15 unanswered, nasty, uncalled for shots to the temple against Jalen Turner. Like, I don't know, man. If Patty connects, I just see him. He could put the lights out. That's exactly what he needs in his career right now. A little revamp with the fans. Seems like destiny to do that in Manchester. So might be looking at a Patty round 1 KO.
Yeah, these guys are both 5'10", too, not 5'8". So
Yeah.
shout out to Slides guy.
Last thing,
Go ahead.
like legit last thing. Patty looks like he's in phenomenal shape too. I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram. This dude is more shredded than I've seen him. So we'll see if he's been putting in the work.
I was impressed with just how big he looked when we
Yeah.
were there in person. Like I didn't realize he was that big.
Yeah, he looked thicker too. Like he looked like he put on some mass. Had the cornrows too.
Yeah, the cornrows is a good move too.
I put a few extra pounds on him, I think.
You should definitely do that again because that mop just bouncing around is just never a good look to the judges. All right, moving on to the co-main event. Interim heavyweight title is on the line. Tom Aspinall coming in as a big favorite against Curtis Blaydes. Personally, never been a Curtis Blaydes guy, and I'm a big Tom Aspinall guy. I think he is the best heavyweight on the planet right now. Most skilled, true heavyweight. It's a big dude. I think he's more like 6'5". He might be listed at 6'4", but I think he's 6'5". And Curtis Blaydes, to me, has just never done it. He's just never done it for me, man. I think he's a lifelong top 5 heavyweight, but I don't think he will ever be the best on the planet. Why? Because he really doesn't have big knockout power on the feet. If anybody's trying to sell you on that, they're lying. The only guy he's knocked out on the feet was Chris Daukaus, who everybody knocks out. And if you want to get on me and say, oh, he knocked out Jilton Almeida. Yeah, Jilton Almeida was just laying his head on a silver platter for him to throw hammer fists on. Like, anybody could have done that after he got ragdolled. And Tom Aspinall, amazing athleticism. He's a true heavyweight who moves like a middleweight. Great timing, great skills on the ground. 100% takedown accuracy, 100% takedown defense. Average fight time of 2 minutes is just nuts, dude. Like, I just don't see anybody beating him. And the only way that I think Curtis Blaydes would beat him here is if Tom Aspinall blows out his knee again. So I'm all on Tom Aspinall, man. Like, I know he's a big favorite, so I'm not saying anything crazy. And would you lay the price? I think he's down to like minus 350. I mean, you're probably better off looking at like round 1 or 2, but I mean, he's probably a decent parlay piece at minus 350. It's not anything crazy because I think he wins. I mean, I think he's better everywhere. And I've never rated Curtis Blaydes, so I'm on Tom Aspinall, man. I know I didn't let you go first, but I had to get that in there.
Yeah. No, I see it the same way. I haven't really liked Curtis Blaydes either. I think it's just the style. I look back at, first of all, I think Tom Aspinall is a very smart guy. And when it comes down to it, if he gets in a bad spot, I think he's going to be a high IQ type of fighter. He's very well-rounded. The wrestling's very good. The striking's powerful, crisp, clean. And I think if you watch Curtis Blaydes versus Jilton Almeida, yes, he landed the, 9 takedowns in that fight, most of them coming in the first round, but he landed one significant strike on Curtis Blaydes. He wasn't looking for ground and pound. He wasn't trying to strike at all when he had dominant position. If Tom Aspinall takes you down once, you're going to eat like 10 shots right away. Like, this dude just starts teeing off on guys when he gets them to the ground. And if you're working your way back to your feet and he's on your back, he's going to be throwing those hooks from the back and hitting you with shots like that. I think that type of style is going to wear down Curtis Blaydes more than Curtis just getting taken down, kind of letting some of them happen. Like, I think Curtis Blaydes like, okay, I'm not eating shots from Jilton Almeida here. Let me just let him gas out in this first round. I'll get back to my feet. He can take me back down, 8 times. Jilton's going to get tired. He's never really been past the first round many times against high-level guys. And then what's he do? He shoots a takedown, gets stuck, and Blaydes just tees off to the back of the ear. That type of thing is not going to happen against Aspinall. Aspinall's getting out of there if he feels any kind of pressure or trouble like that. Now, if this thing stays on the feet, I do think Aspinall has the better boxing, but in their first fight, while it lasted in that first 20 seconds, like, Curtis Blaydes was landing some good shots. I think caught Aspinall off guard. But since then, Curtis has had a few fights that Aspinall can look at and think, all right, I know I can land takedowns on him like Almeida did. Pavlovich was able to stand there and tee off and hit him with some big shots. Aspinall has that power because he knocked out Pavlovich. I just think Aspinall is going to have a great game plan here. I think he has the style to wear down Blaydes as it goes on. Even though Aspinall doesn't go 2 or 3 rounds very often, he's very in shape. He's very dedicated. I think he's going to have the cardio to do it. Even if it gets to the third. I don't see this fight lasting that long, but everywhere you look, I think Aspinall is going to be better. Even though Blaydes has the great wrestling background and pedigree, I think Aspinall is more athletic and explosive and is just every bit as good too. So, yeah, give me Aspinall for the pick. -350, like you said, parlay piece. I don't mind it at all. I think it's destiny that Tom Aspinall moves up and fights the winner of Jones Stipe. So, yeah, I'm taking Aspinall for all the money here.
Yeah. That first fight was 15 seconds. How could you say Curtis Blaydes was landing good shots?
No, I mean, like if you watch him, it was all striking, and there was a few times when Aspinall kind of like got hit and like took a step back, like oh shit, because it was kind of a firefight up until his knee blew out, like right off the bat.
We'll watch it right now.
Yeah, they both came in and started swinging.
All right, so Aspinall threw like a step in knee and caught her right hand on the chin. Curtis Blaydes throws a leg kick. Tom Aspinall checks it. Throws a 3-2 down the middle, whiffs, and then he throws a leg kick. And then Aspinall throws another leg kick and blows it out. So
that shot he got caught with, you could tell he was like a little caught off guard by getting hit with something clean.
Yeah, well, the same shit happened against Pavlovich. He got caught with a left hook, and
he did
the only strike that Pavlovich landed the entire fight. So I don't know, man. I mean, I think.
No, I don't think Blaydes is going to come out here and box him up.
I know what you're saying. I'm just saying. Like it kind of goes back, or I guess we'll go into the next fight after this. Like, Leon versus Bilal 1-round fight. Are we really going to judge it off of that? That was 15 against Aspinall against Blaydes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Aspinall all the way, bro. I think it's probably round 1 or 2 knockout. If you look at Curtis Blaydes, all of his losses come by knockout. Can't face good power punchers, and Tom Aspinall has the best timing. The best boxing at heavyweight right now.
He's fast too.
Yeah, he's fast, moves well, sets up his shots really well. I see a first or second round knockout from Tom Aspinall. I'd probably lean on first round because unless Curtis Blaydes, tries to lay on him or lean up against him early on, but I see Aspinall winning this one pretty easily. Moving on, we got the welterweight championship of the world. We got Leon Edwards coming in at -235 against Bilal. Remember the name, Muhammad, coming in at +180. They tried to hold him back for the longest time. Finally gets his shot. He's 36 years of age. He's on, how long? What's his winning streak right now? 9 wins?
9.
9 winning. Last loss was Jeff Neal by decision 2019. 9 wins in a row to the likes of Gilbert Burns, Sean Brady, Vicente Luque, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia. Those are his last 5 wins since that Leon Edwards eye poke. And Leon, on the other hand, is on a very long winning streak as well. 12 wins in a row. And, defended the title against Colby, defended it against Usman, and then obviously won it against Usman. And then before that beat Nate Diaz. So those are his last 4 fights since that eye poke in the second round. If we look back on that one, just to lay the landscape, the first round, it was probably a really clear Edwards round in that first fight at the Apex. Bilal Muhammad took that fight on short notice and got eye poked in the second round, pretty much right as the second round started. They call it off. It's a no contest. Here they are. Years later, what do you got?
Man, this is a tough one. First, I think Leon, I don't know. Like people talk about how unlikable Bilal is. Both these guys don't get a lot of finishes. Like everyone says, oh, Bilal, decision machine, he's boring. Like they both have 2 finishes in like the last 8 years. Like it's not like Leon's going out there sparking everybody like everybody thinks because he has the one, legendary knockout over Kamaru Usman. I also think Leon has kind of missed a massive opportunity as champion. The guy doesn't do any kind of talking on social media. He doesn't do any kind of hyping up fights. He's just like this silent, like the most silent champion ever, which is like fine. You don't have to like talk shit or anything, but go make yourself some money. And the guy just doesn't. Like, I don't know. I don't like the the attitude. Really, I'd rather see him get fired up and really come into these fights and try to hurt these dudes and cement himself as a phenomenal champion, because he's starting to get some title defenses under his belt. He's not really doing much spectacular. Like that fight against Colby was pitiful, dude. Like we were there, the crowd was booing. Like they hated that fight.
Awful.
It was awful. And Colby was like hurt, wasn't really landing anything. Like Leon had chances to tee off, land some big shots. Almost had submission attempt at one point. And he just kind of fought to his opponent's standard there. Like he just kind of, okay, you want to fight this style? I'm going to do the same, but I'm just going to stay one step ahead of you. I don't think Bilal is really going to give him that opportunity. I think Bilal is going to come forward and try to make this kind of a dog fight, push him up against the cage, try to wear him down, throw some volume. And even though he was getting pieced up in the first fight against Leon, I think Bilal has evolved a little bit since then. You look at some of his fights, he was able to beat Wonderboy by taking him down, landing 58 significant strikes on the ground. Damian Maia, he was able to beat on the feet. But then Vicente Luque, he took down 5 times. Against Sean Brady, he knows Sean Brady's a good grappler. He didn't even mess with it. He stood on the feet and pieced him up, outstruck him by a lot, landed the TKO in round 2. I mean, 80 significant strikes through 2 rounds purely on the feet is pretty impressive volume. And he looked very good in that fight. Then goes out there against Gilbert Burns and lands 132 significant strikes. Gilbert Burns was injured, like with his shoulder, after that first round. But Gilbert's a guy who's not going to quit on himself in there. He's going to make it a dog fight, and he's going to make it a hard fight for anybody, regardless if he's injured or not. So those are great names that Bilal has beat along this 9-fight win streak. Like, he's not fighting bums. He's not taking a coward's route to a title shot. He deserves this shot. He's fired up. He's fighting for a lot, to where I think Leon Edwards is just a little too comfortable as champion. I think he's skilled, obviously, striking wise. He's very, very good. But he's also like talking about fighting Islam and becoming, double champ status if Islam moves up to 170. But he's talking about taking him on next if Islam wants to move up. Like, kind of looking past Bilal. I think he might just be a little too comfortable here against the guy who wants this thing more than maybe any fighter I've ever seen won a championship. Like, this guy's finally getting his shot. I just think Bilal is going to make the best of it. I'm not saying Bilal goes in here and wins this fight or dominates, but plus 180, like, this line should be a little bit closer, in my opinion. I think it stems from their first fight. You look at Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 2, where Leon landed the head kick. He was getting beat up and taken down, rinse and repeat up until the last few minutes. And even in the second fight with Kamaru was able to take him down 4 times in that fight. Leon did outland him on the feet and look good doing it. But Kamaru Usman's style is like this technical boxing where he is going to be right there to be hit. He throws a good jab. I think Bilal is going to have, a little bit different movement than that. He's going to be more in your face than kind of standing at range with a jab and then looking for a takedown. Like, I think Bilal is going to make it a little more, I don't know, not quite as technical. He's just going to make this kind of a dog fight. So I think that is his path to victory. I'm going to take Bilal for the pick. I think it's destiny. I think it's his time. I'm not a big Leon Edwards guy. I just think this is Bilal's time, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when I look at this fight stylistically, I think Leon should win because he's a big welterweight for one. Bilal is not. I mean, he's not 5'9". He's 5'11". Shout out to Slides guy again. 5'11", but I've heard him talk about it on the Rogan podcast about how he could be, like, somebody said he could be a 55er. Like, he's really not that big for a welterweight. It does seem like he's in great shape right now. Looks like he's on the sauce right now. Got that training in Dagestan. He's got that Dagestan juice now or something like that. But he looks like he's in great shape. I just think stylistically it's going to be tough for him to win a fight on the feet, and it's going to be tough for him to get takedowns. But not to say that he can't do it, because if you look at the statistics based on these guys' history in the UFC, Bilal Muhammad has better statistics in almost every category, just as far as output goes. Takedown defense, takedown accuracy, and then just takedowns average. Like, he's just a more active fighter. So I think he could win just based off of being more active, because the big knock on Leon is he's not a guy that really separates himself all that much. Like, he should have beat the brakes off of Colby. Like Colby was not doing anything good in that fight, and yet you still look at it. It was a 49-46 victory, but he only outlanded him by 13 significant strikes. They landed the same amount of takedowns, and Colby had more control time. Leon did threaten with a couple submissions, but like I would have liked to see him, step on the gas a little bit. So it does kind of seem like he's getting a little bit more comfortable and just kind of going with the flow. But that's kind of his style. It's like these European kickboxers where they're gonna beat you, but they're not gonna beat you by much. And eventually, you run into a guy that's just gonna keep coming forward, keep throwing, keep going for takedowns, just be relentless. And I think that's what Bilal needs to do here to get a win. Just be relentless, be in his face, and just try to outdog him, honestly. Because I think skill for skill, he might be outmatched, but that doesn't mean he can't win. Because I think he's highly motivated. He does have some great skills, but just kickboxing wise, Leon's better. Grappling wise, Bilal is the guy that's going to be going for the takedowns. He's got really good defensive takedown defense. I don't see Leon being able to capitalize the way he was against Colby by getting takedowns and stuff. And I don't know, man. I mean, it's probably going to go down to a decision, and maybe Leon gets the home cooking and he's able to edge it out on the scorecards. But this fight's going to a decision, man. I don't see any way this doesn't go to a decision. Like, we're looking at two guys who have some of the most decision wins like ever. Like Leon has 9 decision wins, so half of his wins are go to a decision, and then on the Bilal side, he's got 17 wins by decision. That's crazy.
I do think some people are like blinded by the hate that Bilal gets and like discredit him as a fighter. Like I think he's always been a good fighter, but he's a lot better of a fighter than people give him credit for. Like I said, I think people got their blinders on and just hate him so much that they see right past that.
Yeah, well, people hate him. People also see the hate that people give to him, and they're like, all right, well, he must not be good. Yeah. Well, if people hated him, then I mean, I guess hate does kind of sell, but they also just hate his fight style. That they don't really hate him as a person, I don't think.
Yeah.
They just hate his fight style. And yeah, if he wasn't good, he wouldn't get this chance, because if his fight style is that bad, they just wouldn't give him the chance. And they tried their hardest not to give him the chance, but he just keeps winning. So he's on a 9-fight win streak. Obviously, he's doing something well. And the biggest thing for me with Bilal is like his versatility. Okay, he's going up against a grappler. Okay, he can outstrike him. If he's going up against a striker, he can outgrapple him. If he's going up against a well-rounded guy, he can mix it all in. So there's a lot of paths for Bilal. That's why I think he has a good chance to win this, is because he can do it all. He can really go from one thing to the other based on the matchup. And I trust that all of his training that he's had, over a year of training for this fight, for this opportunity, that he's going to come in with a good game plan. So I mean, for a pick, I guess I think it's dog or pass. Based on the odds, It's dog or pass. I'm not betting Leon Edwards at -230 in a fight that's going to go to a decision, and he's going to barely squeak it out if he gets a win. So I'm going Bilal Muhammad for a pick, and I think it's just a dog or pass spot for me. So that's what I got.
I like it.
All right, and we can wrap it up there. We did. I don't think we mentioned this, and I was wanting to do it, but this fight card's gonna be at like 3 a.m. on local time. So factor that in. But I mean, everybody's gonna have to deal with it. So yeah, you might see some weird performances from guys, but it's not really something that you can project by any means. But local time's 3 a.m. for the prelims, I think, and main card is like 5 or 6 a.m. something like that.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. So sucks for them. But we're getting the normal pay-per-view time, which is honestly, I would have liked it the other way. Just get the pay-per-view at 11 a.m. or 12 a.m. or noon.
Same here.
Would have been nice, but it is what it is. You can follow us at Home of Picks on IG. Stay up to date with everything at HeyJob Picks on the medias. For me, where can they find you?
All social medias at the Parlay MMA.
Good luck. Join the Home of Picks to get all of our bets. And hopefully we cash them again coming off a big week. Hoping to have another one at UFC 304. Till next time, the double leg. Signing off.